Namaskar, this is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. As the year winds down, here's one story that we must tell you about. This was a year of corporate poaching, especially in the tech space. Big names and top talent hired by competitors. Some of these cases went to court. Tonight, we'll tell you about this and why companies need to evolve if they want to retain talent. If you want to retain talent, don't fight it. Make it worth their while to stay. And speaking of fights, the New York Times has picked up a new one, this time not against India. They've sued ChatGPT and Microsoft for stealing their content. And this is something that all content creators and consumers should know about. Meanwhile, in Myanmar, the fighting between the military junta and the rebels has exploded. China is asking its citizens to leave. Whatever happened to the ceasefire they brokered? We'll discuss how Beijing has lost the plot here. Also talking about the fight between Erdogan and Netanyahu. They're calling each other names. India has sought the extradition of Hafiz Saeed, the 2611 mastermind, not like Pakistan is going to give him up. So what's the point we're trying to make? North Korea's Kim Jong-un wants to prepare for war. China's BYD is on course to beating Tesla as the world's biggest EV maker. How did they do it? How and why did the rich grow richer in 2023 while the rest of us suffered a cost of living crisis? And did you know about the economy of returns? Things you return after buying online. It's worth more than $600 billion. We'll tell you more about it. The headlines first. Big relief for Indians on death row in Qatar. Their death penalties have been reduced to jail terms. 8 former officers of the Indian Navy have been in prison since August last year on charges of spying. They were sentenced to death on the 26th of October this year. Israel warns Hezbollah over cross-border attacks, says it will remove the group from Lebanon's borders if attacks continue. Israeli officials say time for diplomacy with Lebanon is running out. The US releases the last of its military aid for Ukraine. The White House approves a new aid package worth $250 million. Ukraine wanted $61 billion, but the US Congress refused. Any more funding to Kiev will need a congressional approval. It's not even New Year's, but the party is over for Russia's top celebrities. An almost naked private party hosted by a popular TV star has sparked massive backlash. Organizers face action while top stars were arrested for quote-unquote disorderly conduct. And Vietnam's Ha Long Bay is losing its famous turquoise hue. Pollution and over-tourism is threatening the ecosystem. The UNESCO site is one of Vietnam's most popular tourist destinations. Last year, over 7 million people visited the limestone islands. It's late December, which means it's the season of forgiveness, but not for everyone. A bitter battle is unfolding in the world of software. At the center of it is talent. Let me explain. In January this year, 2023, Cognizant hired a new CEO. It's a software giant based in the US. Its new CEO is Ravi Kumar, and he's been busy. He's hired some 20 vice presidents and 4 senior vice presidents, most of them from 2 companies, Wipro and Infosys. Now, neither company is happy about this, Wipro and Infosys. Wipro has sued 2 of its departing executives. Infosys has sent a letter to Cognizant, sort of like a warning shot. Both firms are making the same accusation, that of poaching. Let's look at the definition first. Poaching is when you hire employees from your competitor, say Apple and Samsung. If Apple hires a chip specialist from Samsung, it's poaching. If Samsung hires a designer from Apple, it is poaching. And why is that? Because Apple and Samsung are rivals. They compete for the same market, and the choice of this term is quite interesting. Because poaching also has another meaning, the more common one, to illegally hunt or catch animals. But unlike that poaching, corporate poaching is legal. There is no law against hiring from your competitor. In fact, it's pretty common. Some studies say 30% of all job changes are poaching, yet it is frowned upon. Companies say it's unethical and immoral, but the question is why? Companies always look out for their own profits and margins. So why shouldn't employees? I'll tell you what the problem is. It's the mindset. We've been told that company loyalty is paramount, that working for your competitor is wrong. It's basically propaganda. Most companies listen to market forces, so why shouldn't workers? The price of your work is determined by demand and supply. Higher the demand, higher the price. So companies have two options: either pay that price or let someone else pay it. In this case, a competitor. You can't use so-called morals to tie down employees. You must put your money where your mouth is, and data supports this. Let's look at why most employees change jobs. There are two major reasons. One is for better pay. The second is for better opportunities, maybe a promotion or a new role or a better manager. In September, a survey tried to quantify these reasons. It was carried out in the United States, and look at the findings. 32% Americans switched for better pay, 23% for more opportunities. So these two reasons alone make up 55% of the reasons why people change jobs. And why is this important? Because your current employer can also do this. Just think about it. If a rival is offering you more salary, it means you're worth it. So why can't your current employer do the same? In fact, market forces require them to do so. Same with promotions or new roles. If someone else is offering it, so can your current employer. If they can't, they shouldn't talk about poaching. Neither should they sue or shoot letters. So what's the takeaway here? We have two of them. One, corporate leaders need to be more hands-on. Speak to your employees, understand their needs and expectations. If not, someone else will. And two, workers shouldn't feel guilty about poaching. For starters, it is legal. And secondly, you are worth it. Historically, the job market has been a buyer's market. Companies held all the cards. But that was before the digital age. It was a time when your skills and talent went under the radar, but not anymore. Today, it's impossible to hide talent, to suppress talent. Whether it's a prodigious footballer in some local Colombian league, or a skilled coder working from home, or a gifted designer at a car company, you cannot hide them anymore. Rivals will try to offer them better things. So our advice to companies is this: change your approach. Don't live in fear of poaching. Instead, focus on talent retention. How does artificial intelligence work? We spent a whole year asking this question, and a simple answer would be this: through machine learning, by feeding more and more data into AI models. That's how it works. But here's a question: where does this data come from? It is stolen from someone else's work, or is it? Chances are, yes, it is stolen. The New York Times has filed a lawsuit against OpenAI. It's the company behind ChatGPT. The New York Times has sued it. And what does the lawsuit say? That OpenAI used millions of NYT articles to train ChatGPT, that too without permission. So NYT says its copyright has been violated. They want OpenAI to pay up. And how much money are we talking about? Billions is what New York Times said. That's how much they want. I know this is a bit complicated, this case. So let's look at some of the visual evidence. The New York Times had published an article on taxi medallions, an exclusive story. ChatGPT was asked about the same controversy. Now look at the results. All those words in red were plagiarized. They were copy-pasted from NYT. If you look closely, almost the entire ChatGPT output is in red. So the case is strong. Experts say OpenAI is likely to settle rather than fight. But this goes beyond just one case. It's about the future of AI and journalism. Let me explain. We saw a big headline from Qatar today. 8 Indian sailors were on death row, but an appeals court reduced their verdict. Now assume you wanted to know more about this case, its history, the timeline. So you opened up an AI model, say ChatGPT. It tells you everything you need to know about the case. Job done, you carry on. But where did the AI model get that information from? Chances are news websites. In this example, the news agencies lose out twice. First, when their articles are used to gather information, again without permission. And secondly, the loss of traffic. Normally, you would visit the website to read about the case. That's more traffic, more revenue. But in this case, you don't have to visit the website. You can just read it on ChatGPT. So news providers lose out twice. The question is, what is the solution? And the answer is simple: pay up. OpenAI is already doing it with some news agencies. In July, they signed a deal with Associated Press, AP. This month, they signed a deal with Politico. Both are top news platforms in the West, but their content has been licensed by ChatGPT, meaning no copyright violation. So why not do the same with the New York Times? Well, talks were happening in April, but no deal was struck. And this issue is not new. OpenAI has been flooded by copyright litigations. In the month of July, comedian Sarah Silverman filed a case. She said ChatGPT used her work without permission. In September, a group of authors did the same, and one of them was George R.R. Martin, the writer of Game of Thrones. So artificial intelligence has a copyright problem. And no, it's not limited to ChatGPT. Google's Gemini could have similar issues. This month, a union of writers wrote to Google. They asked the company to be transparent about how it trains Gemini. And their concern is valid, because Google won't say how it trains the AI model. Maybe it uses open source data, or maybe it doesn't. Unless they're transparent, we will never know. So two things need to be done. Number one is regulation. It may sound boring, but we need it. Journalists work hard to create original content, whether it's speaking to experts or researching documents or visiting locations. AI cannot be allowed to simply steal their hard work. So you need copyright laws to adapt. And number two, a mindset change. You can't look at artificial intelligence as an alternative to journalism or content, because it's not. It can only be a platform for news, like Google or Twitter or Instagram. Suppose you're at a political rally. A journalist can tell you what the mood was like, upbeat or tired. Artificial intelligence cannot do that. It relies on someone else to put that information online first. Same with investigative pieces. AI cannot travel around the city exposing public officials. Journalists can. So it's a question of credit and revenue. Of course, AI companies will push back. They need more and more data to educate their AI models. They have convinced governments that AI is the future, but will that future be built on stolen work? Will content creators have no protection? It's up to courts and governments to decide that. It's a question that could define the AI age. Tensions are escalating in Myanmar. The rebels are gaining ground, challenging the military. The junta is responding violently, and the situation is getting out of control. Reports say the military in Myanmar is using cluster bombs on civilians. The world's attention is on Ukraine and Gaza, and they've barely noticed the conflict in Myanmar, but soon this may change. China has been meddling in the Myanmar conflict, and they've made a mess of it. And now they're trying to wash their hands off it. Today, China's embassy in Myanmar issued instructions. Chinese citizens have been asked to evacuate, specifically those who live here. The Lao Cai district. This is in northern Myanmar, part of the Kokang region. It falls near the Chinese border. This region has been gripped by violence. It has witnessed clashes between rebels and the military. This week, the fighting exploded. The junta launched airstrikes on Kokang. And what was their target? A military base. It is controlled by the rebels. The rebels say the junta fired the first salvo. They deployed heavy artillery and dropped bombs through fighter jets. It seems the fighting has not stopped, and Chinese citizens living there are in the line of fire. Their embassy says there's a safety risk, and they've ordered the evacuation of all expats.
The current security situation in Myanmar's Kokang Autonomous Region is grim and complicated. We remind Chinese citizens not to travel to northern Myanmar for now and call on Chinese citizens already there, especially in the Lokai urban area, to move to a safe area or return to their home country as soon as possible and take safety precautions.
The region has a deep Chinese connection. There are border gates, important trade routes, and a large trading zone. The border trade is worth $1.8 billion, and the rebel offensive is hurting it. They control large parts of this region, including a town called Chin Shui Ho. The rebels took this town in the month of November. Over 25% of the border trade goes through here. So the rebel offensive is destabilizing trade, also other forms of engagement. The border cities have cultural and ethnic ties to China. People in the region use the yuan, the Chinese currency, even Chinese phone networks. They use them. In other words, Beijing's Beijing's influence here is wide and deep. And it doesn't want to lose this influence. So a few days ago, China jumped into this conflict. It took the role of a mediator. China organized a meeting between the military and the rebels. It happened in Yunnan, in China. And here's a photo from that meeting. China claims there was a breakthrough.
With China's unremitting efforts and active meditation, relevant parties in Myanmar held peace talks in Kunming and signed a temporary ceasefire agreement. China hopes that all parties in Myanmar will earnestly implement the consensus.
So China declared that there is a consensus. This statement came on the 20th of December, 8 days ago. And today, China is asking its citizens to leave Myanmar. So whatever happened to that consensus? It seems to have backfired on China. The junta is now on the offensive, and there are reports of fresh clashes, especially in the Shan state. Reports say the military is using rocket systems and conducting aerial bombing. Civilians are said to have come under attack. Reports say cluster bombs were used in Shan. They accuse the junta of committing war crimes. There is no independent confirmation yet, but there are daily reports of fighting. Looks like China has lost the plot. It was close to the junta. It has close ties. It's a major arms supplier to the regime in Myanmar. But Beijing and the junta are not getting along. China is not happy with the generals. It tried to nudge them to make peace with the rebels, but it failed. And the situation has since worsened. And this is not Beijing's only grouse. It's also upset about the online scams. You see, northern Myanmar is a major center for online scams. Thousands of people here operate hundreds of scam centers and they target Chinese nationals. Last month, Myanmar caught 31,000 suspects. 31,000 suspects? That's how big the problem is. And these suspects were handed over to Beijing. But China was not satisfied. It wants a complete crackdown on these centers. The junta has failed to deliver. They have other priorities like securing their hold on power. The rebels are challenging it. Their offensive began 2 months ago, and since then they've captured 23 towns and over 400 military bases and outposts. So now the military is responding with more force, and Myanmar is bracing for a major escalation in this conflict. For our next story, let's rewind a bit to the month of September this year, when the 78th United Nations General Assembly was underway. Two leaders held a meeting. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and Turkish President Erdogan. They were smiling, even cracking jokes. It was their first in-person meeting as leaders of their countries. The mood was jovial, almost celebratory. Things were looking up for Turkey and Israel. It seemed like nothing could go wrong, but it did. The very next month, there was war. Hamas versus Israel. And now it's Netanyahu versus Erdogan. They're calling each other names and trading charges. In the latest round, Erdogan has compared Netanyahu to Hitler.
They're going to make us long for Hitler too. Is what Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is doing any less than Hitler? No. As of now, Hitler was not as rich as this one. This one is richer compared to Hitler. He's receiving support from the West. All sorts of support comes from America. And with all of this support, what did they do to more than 20,000 Gazans? They killed them.
It's not the first time Erdogan has criticized Israel. He's called it a terrorist state. And he's called Netanyahu, and I'm quoting, the butcher of Gaza, Erdogan's words. But Adolf Hitler is a low blow. Hitler is the same man who killed 6 million Jews. Comparing him with the leader of the Jewish state is an escalation. And of course, Netanyahu has responded. Let me quote from his post. This is what Netanyahu said. Erdogan, who's committing genocide against the Kurds and who holds the world record for imprisoning journalists who oppose his regime, is the last person who can preach morality to us. So Erdogan accuses Netanyahu of genocide, and Netanyahu hits back, saying Erdogan is the one killing Kurds. It's a classic war of words, and not their first. They've had plenty of such duels in the last decade. Fun fact, it doesn't change ties between their countries. Look at their bilateral trade. In 2002, it was $1.41 billion. By 2022, it was worth almost $9 billion. So trade between Israel and Turkey has only grown despite these very visible differences. Plus, Israel is an important market for Turkey, for cars, steel, jewelry, clothing. Then there's tourism. In 2022, a record 700,000 Israelis visited Turkey. So the commercial ties remain firm, no matter what the crisis is. And various opposition parties have raised this. A Turkish opposition leader claims Ankara is shipping thermal clothes to Israeli soldiers. Which begs the question, what explains Erdogan's sharp comments on Netanyahu? To answer that, you have to look at how Erdogan operates. He's someone who goes with the tide. In September, it was all about Israel. Saudi Arabia was talking about normalization. There were talks of a new West Asia, so Erdogan jumped in. He sought better ties with Israel. He was even going to visit the country. Then came the Hamas attacks. The world condemned it. So Erdogan went on a diplomatic blitz. He wanted to negotiate peace between Israel and Hamas. 83 days later, more than 20,000 Gazans have died. Israel's offensive continues. The world is calling for a ceasefire. And Erdogan has again shifted his stance. He's compared Netanyahu to Hitler. Plus, Turkey has its local elections coming up in 2024. So Erdogan needs to appeal to his voter base. That should explain his recent anti-Israel speeches. He's just tapping into public sentiment. It's shifting in Gaza's favor, and he's playing along. That does not mean that he's tapping out of the gains. Erdogan knows that Israel is crucial for Turkey's economy. So he's making sure that the money keeps flowing in. And that's essentially who this man is. A political chameleon, changing colors to suit the political mood. It has worked for him so far, but for how long? Sooner or later, the world will see through it. Now let's talk about Pakistan. It has received a request from India. New Delhi wants the extradition of Hafiz Saeed, the 2611 mastermind. The move is largely symbolic because India does not have an extradition treaty with Pakistan. And even if it did, it's a very long shot. Hafiz Saeed is shielded by the Pakistani military. So the idea is dead on arrival. Then why is India pursuing it? Is this about making a statement? Perhaps to remind the world about Hafiz Saeed? Or is this related to the political ambitions of the terrorist? Our next report explores.
Can Hafiz Saeed be extradited? Social media was buzzing with this question today when a news flash came from New Delhi. India announced it had moved for Saeed's extradition. The significance of this step cannot be overstated. Hafiz Saeed is right at the top of India's most wanted list. He orchestrated the 2008 Mumbai terror attacks. His organization, the Lashkar-e-Taiba, still poses a threat for India. But Pakistan, remaining true to its character, has never paid heed. So when the announcement came, the Foreign Office in Islamabad refused to comment, terming the reports from India speculative. India and Pakistan don't have an extradition treaty, so Islamabad can easily dismiss the claim. Then why is India even bothering? This request is like a litmus test for Pakistan. Reports say India has filed a letter of rogatory. This is a formal request for legal assistance. India wants Hafiz Saeed to face a trial for the Mumbai terror attacks, which led to over 160 deaths. Pakistan had launched its own so-called probe into the attack, but there has been no real progress. And when Islamabad was asked to punish Hafiz Saeed, it chose to drag its feet. Last year, Saeed was handed a prison sentence. He was found guilty of terror financing and asked to spend over 30 years behind bars. Despite the court's order, it's not clear if Saeed is serving his sentence or not. New Delhi has put up a condition now. If Pakistan wants to resume talks with India, it must respond to Saeed's extradition request. So the ball is now in Pakistan's court. India has made countering terrorism a key demand to resuming diplomatic dialogue. But New Delhi may already have its response. Pakistan is gearing up for elections, and Hafiz Saeed is trying his luck one more time. He has fielded candidates on most of the seats. His own son is among them, Hafiz Talha Saeed. He has filed his papers from Lahore. Talha Saeed is the second in command in the Lashkar-e-Taiba, right after his father. Last year, India had declared him a terrorist. New Delhi says Talha Saeed is involved in planning and executing terror attacks in India, and he even looks after recruitment and fund collection. Talha Saeed first came into the spotlight in 2019 when he was speaking at a religious gathering and a bomb exploded. It was a close shave for Talha Saeed. India has also sought action against him at the UN. It pursued a terrorist designation, a label already associated with his father Hafiz Saeed. The United States backed India's move, but as always, China shot down the idea. Now Talha Saeed is gearing up to contest an election with his father enjoying the protection of Pakistan's deep state and unaffected by India's demands.
Now let's shift our focus to Africa, to the Central African Republic. As the name suggests, it is located in Central Africa. It's another former French colony and one of the poorest nations in the world, CAR, Central African Republic. Part of the reason for that is constant warfare. The country has been going through a civil war for over 11 years now. Various rebel factions have taken over parts of it. Maintaining order is a challenge for the CAR government. So they've been getting some help from private military companies like Russia's infamous Wagner Group, Wagner PMC. But how long will that remain the case? Reports say the CAR is now looking to the West for security. It is apparently eyeing the services of an American mercenary firm. It's called Bancroft Global Development. The boring name hides the true nature of their operations. This is a mercenary company founded by a man called Michael Stock. Reports say he founded it with the help of a banking fortune. It started as a company that would demine war zones. Now it allegedly trains soldiers to fight in them. Bancroft is based in Washington, D.C., and it's been active in Africa for years, most notably in Somalia. It's been helping the regime fight terror groups in Somalia. How? Officially by training Somali and African Union troops. That's the information in the public domain. That's what they do. But take a look at their personnel. Their African affairs and governance head is a man called Richard Rouget, a famous mercenary who also goes by the nickname Colonel Sanders. Now he has a leadership role at Bancroft Global Development. It tells you a lot about this firm. Besides Somalia, Bancroft also has presence in Kenya, Uganda and Libya. So it's no stranger to the African continent. And for months now, it has been trying to expand this company to move into Wagner's turf. Now, Wagner is reportedly a household name in the Central African Republic. They've been active in this country for over half a decade, doing everything from training soldiers to protecting resources to even being part of the presidential guard. This is the CAR's president, Faustin Archange Touadera. Now, he's been ruling the country since 2016. He's the one who brought in Wagner through an official deal with the Russian government. A few years ago, he was even known as President Wagner. That's how closely he was associated with the Russian mercenary company. But that seems to be in the past because reports say he's now looking for security elsewhere. The Wagner Group is not what it used to be. It's been facing challenges since the death of Yevgeny Prigozhin. That happened in August. The former Wagner chief had marched on Moscow. He defied the Russian military's top brass. And he also crossed Russian President Vladimir Putin. Exactly 2 months after this, he died in a plane crash. And Wagner has been struggling since. Former Wagner commanders have left the firm. They've joined either the Russian army or other companies. Wagner itself has been broken up and renamed. It's been rebranded as the Africa Corps. You heard that right. Wagner was an asset to Russia in Africa, so it has been renamed and dedicated to the continent. Despite this, the CAR seems to be losing faith in the Russian company. The president is in talks with the American firm, and he's been talking to them for months now, since July, according to some reports. That's how long the talks have gone on. But something seems to have changed now. A former senior Wagner leader arrived in the CAR a few days ago. He was once the president's national security advisor, But he was put under US sanctions and then he left the country. Now he's reportedly back in the CAR after a gap of 2 years, despite the sanctions and other risks. So is Wagner finally worried? Are the American mercenaries on the verge of replacing them? We'll keep track of this. That's another nation constantly on the brink, North Korea. Their Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un has issued a diktat. He has asked the country to quote-unquote accelerate war preparations. Again, the announcement came during North Korea's annual review. The Hermit Kingdom's leadership is looking back on all the work done in the past year. They're holding meetings to plan next year's budget and agenda. And this meeting is where Kim issued the war readiness order. He says the preparation is necessary because, and I'm quoting, because of unprecedented confrontational moves by the US. So he's citing American provocation for this military buildup. Here's our report.
It's a busy week in Pyongyang for the North Korean government. Senior leaders are pulling up in their Mercedes-Benz limousines. The cars are technically banned in North Korea because of sanctions imposed on luxury goods, but it seems they're easily available to the top North Korean officials. All these senior Workers' Party of Korea leaders are gathering in the capital for a year-end review. Every year, there's a plenary meeting of the party's Central Committee. This year is no different. The senior leadership has gathered to present their reports and, of course, praise the visionary policies of their supreme leader, Kim Jong-un. Look at their reactions when the man of the moment arrived. The excitement and the devotion. Kim had to wave to them and tell them to settle down. Like a rock star asking the audience to be quiet and let the show begin. And much like a famed rock star, Kim was sure to play his greatest hits. He issued the diktat they'd all come to hear. Accelerate war preparations. Yes, like every year, Kim made sure to call for more military readiness. And the crowd went wild. Another standing ovation. There was non-stop cheering in the bright red party hall and also over at North Korean state media stations. Kim had given the word. North Korea would fight back. Against whom? The US, apparently. And by extension, American allies in the Far East. Kim's war preparation order was issued to 3 entities: the North Korean military, the country's military-industrial complex, and of course, the nuclear weapons sector. Pyongyang has been making big strides on that third front. Last week, the country had test-launched a new intercontinental ballistic missile, the Hwasong-18. The nuclear-capable missile can reach any corner of the US. That's what Japan and South Korea are saying. The 2 American allies have been quite worried since last week's launch. South Korea has even begun military drills, just in case Pyongyang decides to go for a surprise attack. Kim Jong-un didn't seem too concerned about his southern neighbor yesterday. His eye is on the big prize, the overbearing Uncle Sam. Kim plans to work with like-minded allies to counter Washington. He said he would expand strategic cooperation with anti-imperialist independent countries. Most likely, that means Russia. Kim met with Russian President Vladimir Putin earlier this year. He's been accused of selling weapons to Moscow for use in the Ukraine war. So expanding that relationship is a logical next step. According to reports, that will also help with North Korea's luxury car smuggling. Clearly something that's important to the ruling party. Kim's cheering officials do seem to like their Mercedes Maybachs. Maybe those were discussed during the meeting as well? It was, after all, about Pyongyang's plans for 2024. North Korean media just shared a jingoistic snippet of the whole affair. More policies were certainly announced, but we'll have to wait for a few more days for those details. The Hermit Kingdom usually televises Kim's grand speech every New Year's Day. This little speech was just a teaser. There's a lot more to come.
There's a new king in the EV world. That's right, Elon Musk's Tesla is about to lose its crown. And who's the new king? China's BYD. The company is all set to overtake Tesla on sales. It's expected to happen this quarter. Now, if you follow the world of electric vehicles, this is big news because Tesla was unbeatable. You think electric, you think Tesla. So how did BYD manage to topple it? It's a story that mixes business and geopolitics. Even Elon Musk did not see it coming. In 2011, he was asked about the challenge from BYD. Take a look at his response.
Although there's competitors now ramping up, and as you're familiar with BYD, which is also on the West Coast, I think they're ramping up production of their electric vehicles. Warren Buffett owns 10% stake in that. Why do you laugh? BYD is trying to compete. Why do you laugh?
Have you seen their car?
Have you seen their car? He says. He sneered and laughed. I'll tell you who's laughing today. Wang Chuanfu, the founder of BYD. He's very different from Elon Musk. No grand social media displays, no PR stunts. He likes to stay on the sidelines, but his ambition is grand. He wants to beat the top dogs in the auto sector, the likes of Germany, Japan and the US. In the last quarter, he caught up to Tesla. Both companies sold more than 300,000 cars. Tesla's lead was just 3,400, meaning Tesla sold around 3,400 vehicles more than BYD. In this quarter, that's expected to change. BYD will overtake Tesla. The only question is, by how much? So let's get to the obvious question. How did they do it? How did BYD do it? In the early 2000s, this company was not making cars, they were making batteries. Their first hybrid car rolled out in 2008, and honestly, the designs were bad. But in the next decade, EVs picked up. Everyone was talking about global warming, so government said electric is the way to go, and China went all in. They gave subsidies worth billions of yuan. BYD made good use of that. They made their cars affordable and advanced. Just one problem remained, the problem of looks. BYD had an answer for that too. They hired designers from top European car makers like Ferrari, Audi and Mercedes. So BYD now had the complete package: looks, state support and price advantage. Most BYD cars are much cheaper than Tesla's, hence the sales. BYD's rise is closely linked to China's own EV ambitions. We are talking about a huge market. Some 6.2 million EVs were sold in the first half of 2023. That's 49% higher than 2022. And the market share keeps growing. EVs made up just 4% of total car sales in 2020. Only 4%. It rose to 14% in 2022. And this year, 16%. By 2030, it could reach 75%. So the future is electric, and China wants to dominate that future. They've exported some 3.6 million cars this year, out of which 1.3 million are EVs. It tells you what the focus is. If you look at the Chinese market, it's filled with EV players. Reports say there are 300 of them, 300 makers. And a new one is now entering the field. Phone maker Xiaomi. They've unveiled their first electric car. Apparently, they spent $1.4 billion developing this car. So what's the timeline? Xiaomi says the car will hit the roads in the coming months. Their plan is to dominate the EV market globally. Now, I know what you're thinking. So many EV makers, won't they throttle each other's business? Well, not really. The global market is still expanding. There is enough room for China's army of EV makers. In fact, more companies equal more exports. Does that mean China's dominance is guaranteed? Well, the West is plotting a comeback. For starters, they don't like subsidies. They don't like the subsidies that China is giving, and you can't blame them. Chinese EV makers have a huge cost advantage. Some reports say by around 25%. Western companies simply cannot beat those prices. So what are they doing? Imposing import tariffs. Both the US and European Union are considering higher tariffs. The idea is to level the playing field for their companies. EV makers themselves are looking to diversify, like Tesla. Reports say they're all set to build a factory here in India. Apparently, Elon Musk has chosen the state of Gujarat. He's expected to travel to India in the month of January, and that's when the project could be announced. And how much money is he investing? Earlier reports had hinted at $2 billion. If true, it's a U-turn for Elon Musk. He was initially reluctant to invest in India. There was a huge tug-of-war. Musk said reduce import tariffs on EVs. That's what he wanted. Only then will Tesla come to India. But New Delhi said, make your cars locally. No import, no tariff. Now, we don't know who has made concessions, but clearly Musk needs new markets. BYD started selling in India last year. They've sold around 2,000 cars, and Tesla, 0. They're yet to launch in India. Elon Musk will be looking to change that because here Tesla has the advantage. BYD was hoping to invest $1 billion in India, but New Delhi said no. Simple logic. You have one Chinese company and one American company. Which one do you think will succeed in India? Geopolitics says the American one. So it's a big opportunity for Tesla. At the same time, a challenge for India's budding EV makers. Let's see if they can rise to the occasion. Have you heard of the Matthew effect? I'm not going to get into the definition, but simply put, it says those who have wealth only attract more wealth over time, meaning the rich only get richer. And it happened this year as well. From Elon Musk to Mark Zuckerberg, the world's wealthiest only got more wealthy in 2023. Just look at the numbers. Out of the top 50 richest people in the world, only 12 lost money. The remaining 38 became wealthier. Out of the top 500, 77% got richer, and this happened as millions across the world suffer a cost of living crisis. So what explains this widening inequality? Why do the rich keep getting richer no matter what the global situation is? Our next report tells you.
What will you remember 2023 as? The year of yet another war? The year of artificial intelligence? Well, we know what the rich will say. For them, it was the year of getting richer. Most of the world's wealthiest got more wealthy in 2023. Some of them added billions to their wealth. Topping the table is Elon Musk. His net worth is an estimated $235 billion. And just this year, he's added over $100 billion more. But it wasn't X, formerly Twitter, that got him here despite the name change. It wasn't his golden goose. It was his OG business, Tesla. That's what rallied his comeback. But Elon Musk isn't alone. There are many more on this list. Meta founder Mark Zuckerberg, Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos, LVMH's Bernard Arnault, Google co-founders Sergey Brin and Larry Page, and former Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer. In fact, Steve made $1 billion this year by doing nothing. It's from dividends from his Microsoft shares. So out of the top 50 richest people, 38 made more money this year. Out of the top 500, 77% got richer. And mind you, this isn't a new phenomenon. It happened even during the pandemic. Every 30 hours, the pandemic spawned a new billionaire. This as millions were pushed into poverty. So why do the rich keep getting richer? Well, the inequality debate has been raging for some time now. It's about a lot of things. There are tax breaks, financial incentives, access to opportunities. Basically, a lot of systemic advantages. But what many people forget is this. Capital begets capital. Imagine two people, person A and person B. Person A earns $100 million a year and person B earns $10 million a year. Both have expenses amounting to $5 million. So person A is left with $95 million to invest and person B with $5 million. So who will be the one earning more from investments? It will obviously be person A. Data suggests America's wealthiest put 75% of their savings into investment assets. But it's not just about the money you invest. It's also about how well performing those investments are. And the wealthy people do that better too. There are high-performing stocks, bonds, and then there are private equity and hedge funds, things that are barely accessible to a daily investor. Basically, if you have money, it's easier to grow it. But if you don't, it's harder to start the process. It's almost like being stuck in a loop. Billionaires have seen their wealth expand by 109% in the past decade, from $5.6 trillion to $11.8 trillion. Their fortunes increase by $2.7 billion every day. The top 10% of the world's richest own 76% of the world's wealth. The bottom 50% possess just 2% of global wealth. That's how wide the inequality is, and it's only going to grow in the future. The rich will get richer, be it a pandemic or a war.
Do you know what's great about December? The end of year sales. E-commerce websites are a shopper's paradise right now. Let's say you decide to treat yourself. You order a pair of shoes online. They arrive, you take the lid off the box, untie the laces and try wearing the shoes. But they don't fit. So after the initial shock, you request to return them. It is disappointing, but the shoes have never been worn. They're brand new. So at least they'll be back on the shelf. No harm, no foul, right? Wrong. Do you know what happens to the things we order online but don't keep? What happens to the purchases we return? Every time you hit that return button, an unseen reverse supply chain comes to life. The returns logistics industry. It is worth $627 billion. Its basic job is to sort out the returns, see what is salvageable and what is waste. But it's a tough one. That new pair of shoes you send back, it's not defective, but it has an open box and untied laces. Someone will have to put it together. Sometimes companies don't have the technology or the time to handle that. And even if they did, returns are shipped, driven and flown all over the world, sometimes quite a few times for a single item. So returns are expensive for sellers. They often cost more than the items themselves. So companies get rid of them. They try selling the returns cheaply to discounters. For instance, the people who will sell a truckload of TVs for $2,000. This is the most profitable option for returns. But that strategy does not work with all items, especially apparel. So there's a quicker way to handle matters, like dumping the returns in landfills. It may sound absurd, but this is the reality. With a simple click on return button, treasure turns to trash, only because it was the wrong color or size. It ends up in landfills. Everyone is not part of the problem. Like the Japanese, they seldom return anything. Unlike the Americans, they are the world's leading purchase returners. They return about 20% of all online purchases. The Americans, every year Americans return about 3.5 billion products, out of which only 20% are actually defective. Last year, they returned products worth $816 billion, and that is more than the US defense budget. Let that sink in. Now, America may be the biggest, but it's not the only contributor. Germans return more than half of what they buy online. 25% of the UK's online orders are returned, same for India. This is a global problem, and it has given birth to an invisible scam, an organized retail crime. It's called wardrobing. Shoppers buy something only to wear it once and then return it. Like buying an expensive dress to wear on Christmas, then returning it afterwards. Wardrobing is so common, it makes up about half of the returns, and it doesn't apply to just clothes. A forest's worth of artificial Christmas trees are returned every January. In America, there's a surge in large-screen TV returns after the Super Bowl. This may seem harmless, but it costs retailers money, over $10 for every $100 worth of returns. And this is terrible for the environment. Every year, 5 billion pounds of waste is generated through returns. The transportation creates a huge carbon footprint. America's returns alone generate 16 million metric tons of carbon emissions and 9.5 million pounds of landfill waste each year. That is enough to fill 10,000 Boeing 747 planes. Consumers are partly to blame, yes. Many are quick to buy and quicker to return. Most are unaware of the repercussions. But companies are also at fault here. Over the past few years, they have made returns seamless and free to boost sales. Only this year, retailers finally passed some costs of returns to consumers. Now, stores like H&M and J.Crew charge a fee. Amazon has also started charging $1 per return, but this barely stops anyone from returning purchases. These are e-commerce giants. We're talking about masterminds of supply chains and data analytics. They can do so much more. They can make return logistics transparent. They can speed up the return and refund process. That way, retailers will wait lesser. Fewer returns will end up in landfills, and consumers will also be happy. Companies have great logistics when it matters to them. They know who buys what and when, where their eyes are, where the cursor follows. They have made it so easy to help consumers part with their money. Why not introduce the same level of sophistication when people want to part with their purchase? And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. In Russia, a plane lands on a frozen river by mistake. In Chile, animals have a blast during roadblocks due to protests. And if you like Star Wars and car wash, you will love the Star Wars-inspired car wash facility where Darth Vader uses the Force to summon cleaning cloths. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day, in 1895, the world's first commercial movie was screened by the Lumiere brothers. The film showed workers leaving their factory. The screening was organized at a cafe in Paris. We're leaving you on that note. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
This is the first film projector, which ran a film 3 times the size of the modern film. It was worked by hand. Comparing it with the type of film projector which is showing this picture to you is rather like comparing a rowing boat and a battleship. However, it showed this film, the first ever to be exhibited to the public. It was called the hat trick, and it still looks a good trick to me.
Самолет, река.
Así que bueno, mi gente, ¿qué pasó? Mira, el mayate está ready. Oh, güey. Mayate.